John Winston Ono Lennon, B. was born in wartime England, on 9 October 1948 December 1980, was an English singer and songwriter who rose to worldwide fame as a Colorado founder of the band The Beatles, the most commercially successful band in the history of popular music. With fellow member Paul McCartney, he formed a celebrated songwriting partnership. Lennon was born at Liverpool Maternity Hospital, to Julia and Alfred Lennon, a merchant seaman of Irish descent, who was away at the time of his son's birth. His parents named him John Winston Lennon after his paternal grandfather, John Jack Lennon, and then Prime Minister Winston Churchill. His father was often away from home but sent regular paychecks to 9 Newcastle Road, Liverpool, where Lennon lived with his mother. The checks stopped when he went absent without leave in February 1944. When he eventually came home 6 months later, he offered to look after the family, but Julia, by then pregnant with another man's child, rejected the idea. After her sister, Mimi Smith, twice complained to Liverpool's social services, Julia handed the care of Lennon over to her. In July 1946, Lennon's father visited Smith and took his son to Blackpool, secretly intending to emigrate to New Zealand with him. Julia followed them with her partner at the time, Bobby Dykins, and after a heated argument his father forced the 5-year-old to choose between them. Lennon twice chose his father, but as his mother walked away, he began to cry and followed her. It would be 20 years before he had contact with his father again. Throughout the rest of his childhood and adolescence he lived with his aunt and uncle, Mimi and George Smith, who had no children of their own, at Mendips, 251 Menlove Avenue, Walton. His aunt purchased volumes of short stories for him, and his uncle, a dairyman at his family's farm, bought him a mouth organ and engaged him in solving crossword puzzles. Julia visited Mendips on a regular basis, and when John was 11 years old he often visited her at 1 Blomfield Road, Liverpool, where she played him Elvis Presley records, taught him the banjo, and showed him how to play Ain't That a Shame by Fats Domino. Lennon became involved in the skiffle craze as a teenager. His first band, the Quarrymen, evolved into the Beatles in 1960. When the group disbanded in 1970, Lennon embarked on a solo career that produced the critically acclaimed albums John Lennon / Plastic Ono Band and Imagine, and iconic songs such as Give Peace a Chance, Working Class Hero, and Imagine. After his marriage to Yoko Ono in 1969, he changed his name to John Ono Lennon. Lennon disengaged himself from the music business in 1975 to raise his infant son Sean, but re-emerged with Ono in 1980 with the new album Double Fantasy. He was murdered 3 weeks after its release. Lennon revealed a rebellious nature and acerbic wit in his music, writing, drawings, on film and in interviews. Controversial through his political and peace activism, he moved to Manhattan in 1971, where his criticism of the Vietnam War resulted in a lengthy attempt by Richard Nixon's administration to deport him, while some of his songs were adopted as anthems by the anti-war movement and the larger counterculture. At age 15, Lennon formed the skiffle group, the Quarrymen. Named after Quarry Bank High School, the group was established by him in September 1956. By the summer of 1957, the Quarrymen played a spirited set of songs, made up of half skiffle and half rock and roll. After a year of Beatlemania in the UK, the group's historic February 1964 debut appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show marked their breakthrough to international stardom. The Beatles received recognition from the British establishment when they were appointed members of the Order of the British Empire, B, in the 1965 Queen's Birthday Honours. Deprived of the routine of live performances after their final commercial concert on 29 August 1966, Lennon felt lost and considered leaving the band. Since his involuntary introduction to LSD, he had made increasing use of the drug, and was almost constantly under its influence for much of 1967. Lennon left the Beatles in September 1969 and agreed not to inform the media while the group renegotiated their recording contract, but he was outraged that McCartney publicized his own departure on releasing his debut solo album in April 1970. In 1970, Lennon and Ono went through primal therapy with Arthur Janov in Los Angeles, California. Designed to release emotional pain from early childhood, the therapy entailed 2.5 days a week with Jana for 4 months. He had wanted to treat the couple for longer, but they felt no need to continue and returned to London. Lennon's emotional debut solo album, John Lennon / Plastic Ono Band, 1970, was received with high praise. In early 1974, Lennon was drinking heavily and his alcohol-fueled antics with Harry Nilsson made headlines. 2 widely publicized incidents occurred at the Troubadour Club in March. The first when Lennon placed a menstrual pad on his forehead and scuffled with a waitress, and the second, 2 weeks later, when Lennon and Nilsson were ejected from the same club after heckling the Smothers Brothers. With the birth of his second son Sean on 9 October 1975, Lennon took on the role of house husband, beginning what would be a 5-year hiatus from the music industry during which he gave all his attention to his family. Within the month, he fulfilled his contractual obligation to EMI/Capitol for one more album by releasing Shaved Fish, a compilation album of previously recorded tracks. He devoted himself to Sean, rising at 6 a.m. daily to plan and prepare his meals and to spend time with him. He wrote "Cookin' in the Kitchen of Love" for Star's Ringo S. Raw Gravure, 1976, performing on the track in June in what would be his last recording session until 1980. He formally announced his break from music in Tokyo in 1977, saying, "We have basically decided, without any great decision, to be with our baby as much as we can until we feel we can take time off to indulge ourselves in creating things outside of the family." During his career break he created several series of drawings, and drafted a book containing a mix of autobiographical material and what he termed mad stuff, all of which would be published posthumously. Lennon and Cynthia Powell met in 1957 as fellow students at the Liverpool College of Art. Lennon asked her out, but when she said that she was engaged, he screamed out, "I didn't ask you to fucking marry me, did I?" Recalling his reaction in July 1962 on learning that Cynthia was pregnant, Lennon said, "There's only one thing for it, Cyn. We'll have to get married." The couple were married on 23 August at the Mount Pleasant Register Office in Liverpool. His marriage began just as Beatlemania took hold across the UK. He performed on the evening of his wedding day, and would continue to do so almost daily from then on. Epstein, fearing that fans would be alienated by the idea of a married Beatle, asked the Lennons to keep their marriage secret. Julian was born on 8 April 1963. Lennon was on tour at the time and did not see his son until 3 days later. Cynthia attributed the start of the marriage breakdown to LSD, and as a result, she felt that he slowly lost interest in her. After negotiations, Lennon capitulated and agreed to her divorcing him on the same grounds. The case was settled out of court in November 1968, with Lennon giving her £100,000, $240,000 in US dollars at the time, a small annual payment and custody of Julian. Ono began visiting and telephoning Lennon's home and, when his wife asked for an explanation, Ono became pregnant in 1968 and miscarried a male child they named John Ono Lennon II on 21 November 1968, a few weeks after Lennon's divorce from Cynthia was granted. They were married in Gibraltar on 20 March 1969, and spent their honeymoon at the Hilton Amsterdam campaigning with a week-long betting for peace. After Ono was injured in a car accident, Lennon arranged for a king-sized bed to be brought to the recording studio as he worked on the Beatles' last album, Abbey Road. Through involvement in a project with EBCO, Lennon and Ono met her the following year. She became their personal assistant. After she had been working with the couple for 3 years, Ono confided that she and Lennon were becoming estranged from one another. She went on to suggest that Pang should begin a physical relationship with Lennon, telling her, "He likes you a lot." Pang, 22, astounded by Ono's proposition, eventually agreed to become Lennon's companion. The pair soon moved to California, beginning an 18-month period he later called his "lost weekend." By December he and Pang were considering a house purchase, and he was refusing to accept Ono's telephone calls. In January 1975, he agreed to meet Ono, who claimed to have found a cure for smoking. But after the meeting he failed to return home or call Pang. When Pang telephoned the next day, Ono told her Lennon was unavailable, being exhausted after a hypnotherapy session. 2 days later, Lennon reappeared at a joint dental appointment, stupefied and confused to such an extent that Pang believed he had been brainwashed. He told her his separation from Ono was now over, though Ono would allow him to continue seeing her as his mistress. When Lennon and Ono were united, she became pregnant, but having previously suffered 3 miscarriages in her attempt to have a child with Lennon, she said she wanted an abortion. She agreed to allow the pregnancy to continue on condition that Lennon adopt the role of house husband. This he agreed to do. Sean was born on 9 October 1975, Lennon's 35th birthday, delivered by cesarean section. Lennon's subsequent career break would span 5 years. Lennon emerged from retirement in October 1980 with the single, Just Like, Starting Over, followed the next month by the album Double Fantasy, which contained songs written during a journey to Bermuda on a 4-3-foot sailing boat. The previous tune, that reflected his fulfillment in his newfound stable family life. Sufficient additional material was recorded for a planned follow-up album Milk and Honey, released posthumously in 1984. Released jointly by Lennon and Ono, Double Fantasy was not well received, drawing comments such as melody makers, indulgent sterility and so on. A god-awful yawn, according to FBI surveillance reports, and confirmed by Tarek Lie in 2006, Lennon was sympathetic to the International Marxist Group, a Trotskyist group formed in Britain in 1968. However, the FBI considered Lennon to have limited effectiveness as a revolutionary since he was constantly under the influence of narcotics. At around 10:50 p.m. on 8 December 1980, as Lennon and Ono returned to their New York apartment in the Dakota, Mark David Chapman shot Lennon in the back 4 times at the entrance to the building. Lennon was taken to the emergency room of nearby Roosevelt Hospital and was pronounced dead on arrival at 11 o'clock p.m. Earlier that evening, Lennon had autographed a copy of Double Fantasy for Chapman. Ono issued a statement the next day, saying, "There is no funeral for John," ending it with the words, "John loved and prayed for the human race. Please pray the same for him." His body was cremated at Ferncliff Cemetery in Hartsdale, New York. Ono scattered his ashes in New York's Central Park, where the Strawberry Fields Memorial was later created. Chapman pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 20 years to life. As of 2015, he remains in prison, having been denied parole 8 times. After Lennon's death, historian John Wiener filed a Freedom of Information Act request for FBI files documenting the Bureau's role in the deportation attempt. The FBI admitted it had 281 pages of files on Lennon, but refused to release most of them on the grounds that they contained national security information provided by a foreign government under an explicit promise of confidentiality, were released in December 2006. They contained no indication that the British government had regarded Lennon as a serious threat. One example of the released material was a report that 2 prominent British leftists had hoped Lennon would finance a left-wing bookshop and reading room. Lennon continues to be mourned throughout the world and has been the subject of numerous memorials and tributes. In 2002, the airport in Lennon's hometown was renamed the Liverpool John Lennon Airport. In 2010, on what would have been Lennon's 70th birthday, the John Lennon Peace Monument was unveiled in Chavez Park, Liverpool, by Cynthia and Julian Lennon. The sculpture entitled Peace and Harmony exhibits peace symbols and carries the inscription, "Peace on Earth for the Conservation of Life in honor of John Lennon 1940-1980. In December 2013, the International Astronomical Union named one of the craters on Mercury after Lennon. He was appointed member of the Order of the British Empire, B, with the other Beatles in 1965, returned in 1969. Lennon was posthumously inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 1987 and into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1994. The Lennon-McCartney songwriting partnership is regarded as one of the most influential and successful of the 20th century. As the former writer or Colorado writer, Lennon has had 25 #1 singles on the US Hot 100 chart. His album sales in the US stand at 14 million units. Double Fantasy was his best-selling solo album, had 3 million shipments in the US. Released shortly before his death, it won the 1981 Grammy Award for Album of the Year. The following year, the Brit Award for Outstanding Contribution to Music went to Lennon. participants in a 2002 BBC poll voted him 8 of 100 greatest hits. Between 2003 and 2008, Rolling Stone recognized Lennon in several reviews of artists and music, ranking him 5th of 100 greatest singers of all time, and 38th of 100 greatest artists of all time, and his albums John Lennon/Best in Ono Band and Imagine, 22 North Dakota and 76th respectively of Rolling Stone's 500 greatest albums of all time.